It's Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Welcome into Monday night as we head towards, the end of February, but a glorious day weather-wise. Hopefully you got out to take part in what is probably one of the last days of February that we'll see maybe the sun. I'm not guaranteeing that, but I don't know. Dave Shannon's on the line live from Altoona, Pennsylvania tonight. Dave, did you get out into the glorious sunshine and, maybe cut some grass or do some fishing or something?
No, nothing in the out of doors. Taking care of some, trying to shake off the winter doldrums.
Yeah.
And take care of some things inside the house. So, yeah, I was out over the weekend, did some outside things on Saturday. So.
Right. Well, I gotta admit that I went today. Matter of fact, I work volunteer at the drop-in center, and we get people together every day, Monday through Friday, and hang out and socialize. Well, it was my brilliant idea to go to a gymnasium and play some basketball.
Really?
Oh yeah, and I'm going to be feeling it tomorrow. I'm kind of dragging tonight. And I always say, well, we're going to take the kids over to the gym today. We made arrangements. Well, one of the kids, she was on a walker. She's 84 years old. And I got her up once she understood what I wanted her to do. And she tossed in a couple of hoops. And she said she had the greatest time. So,
cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
So that was a lot of fun. Kind of related to sports, but I definitely need to get in shape here, man. Hey, over the weekend, a lot of stuff happening up at Penn State, and I can't even tell you all the events that were going on, Dave, but you made mention last year, and you acknowledge the prolific philanthropic thon that they do every year. So we just want to start off the show tonight with congratulating all those people that helped raise over $9 million this year, almost $10 million at Penn State at Bryce Jordan Center. I don't know if you've ever been or had the occasion to go to one of those, but I tell you what, if you haven't, definitely stop by the next thon. It is just, it's not even about the money, Dave. It's about the kids, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and it's also not about them dancing.
Right, exactly.
That money's been raised prior to the time that actually kicks off. I mean, it had humble beginnings.
Yeah.
It was amazing how small it was when it first started out.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it just grew and grew, and the Jordan Center came along, and then they started to fill the Jordan Center.
Right.
At the beginning, it was a true, for those of us old enough that would remember a dance marathon, the money raised was basically the people that would agree to go out and dance for this ungodly period of time.
It was 48 hours back in when I worked in State College and radio. They would go to Rec Hall, and they would dance all weekend long. Of course, you said now the last probably 10, 15, 20 years, they have other organizations and other groups and other activities that help raise that $9 to $10 million. Last year, matter of fact, they raised over $13 million. So they just wanted to let people know that, no, it wasn't necessarily a down year, but they had a canning incident that occurred where somebody got killed on the way back, so they shut that down. They probably could have raised another $2 million in that effort. So either way, if you've never been there, it is a sight to behold. It's a lot of fun. And, again, it goes back to it's for research and, of course, to help out medically these children who have cancer and some other diseases. And I'm trying to remember, was that just with Geisinger Hospital, or was it like all the hospitals in Pennsylvania? Because
it's
pretty
with
much
all, and of course, Penn State has the affiliation with the Hershey Medical
Center, right? So
yeah. It's a big thing, and of course, one of the things that if you do happen to go and you're there at the right time, and normally they have a program set up as to what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
There are times when the children actually show up.
Yeah, they're there throughout the weekend. Yeah.
And so that really brings it home when you see the kids there on the stage, and that it helps the people that are quote unquote dancing.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just kind of milling about on the floor.
It's 46 hours of standing, man. There's no sitting. There's no lying down. There's no taking a break to go home. Kids, the dancers or the thoners, they have figured it out over the years. A lot of celebrities come back for that weekend. Some of the old football players, basketball players, if they're able. And it was a splendid weekend at Penn State anyhow, because not only did they have that event, Dave, over the weekend they had hockey going on, Penn State men's basketball underway, and, of course, the big last-minute choice of Rec Hall for the NCAA wrestling duels, the first one in NCAA history. And even though Penn State was probably looking pretty good going into this thing, they ended up defeating Oklahoma State. And we'll talk a little bit about, what Penn State's doing these days. But let's start this edition of Monday Night Sports Talk with Dave Shannon live in Altoona. And Jeff Speck, by the way, is going to call us hopefully from Hollidaysburg tonight, where the Huntington Bearcat boys are taking on Forest Hills in the opening round of the actually, it's a PIAA District 2 or AA basketball action, so hopefully we get a report from him. But let me ask you this, Dave. I didn't watch it yesterday, but I just wanted to note Daytona 500, a couple of things. It was a photo finish. I mean, one of the first one, I think, in the history. Am I correct on that, where Denny Hamlin won that yesterday?
Yeah, it was, and just an exciting end of the race.
Oh, yeah.
Because Kenseth, was it Kenseth that had
held
Matt
Kenseth,
the
I think
count?
It was, right.
And he just got bumped just a little bit, went up high on the track, and I could not believe after he had held that position for that long and was only like a lap and a half away from taking the checkered flag, and everything changed in that split second.
Yeah.
I was also the other impressive thing, the lack of accidents coming down to the end of the race in light of how many cars were still active at the end of the race. That was a huge field that was still racing at the end of the Daytona 500 and all gathered right together. Much of it was 3 wide.
Yeah.
And anytime you get 3 wide and you're doing 190 some miles an hour, there's a risk that something's going to happen.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
It's like if your nose gets itchy and you move your hand, you could create about a 6-car pileup.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing ending to that race. And I thought a really good start for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series this year.
Yeah, now, I don't know much about NASCAR, and I do watch it from time to time. And I wanted to make mention, this has always been sort of tabbed the Super Bowl of NASCAR. Most Super Bowls or most playoffs are happening at the end of the season. All this will count for points towards the end of the season, but they try to make this the biggest event. And a lot of people are saying maybe timing-wise, if you look at basketball and hockey and
That's
some other
pretty much what it is, Greg.
Yeah.
It just happens to fall at a time of year.
Okay.
That is just, I mean, not that it's void of other sports activities.
Right.
But it can take center stage as one of the biggest races in the Sprint Cup Series for the course of a season because, no one's in playoffs right now.
No.
None of the major sports are in playoffs. College basketball is still a couple weeks away from March Madness.
Yeah.
Or a week or so away from March Madness. And, it gives it an opportunity to really take center stage.
Well, I think that, more importantly, taking center stage is important. But, again, the significance of, like, the Super Bowl, supposedly, I did see where the ratings were down this year, and I don't know why that was. But I do remember there were a couple of outdoor hockey events, and we'll get to those in just a moment, too. And that might have been the reason why you didn't see such a spike in the ratings, or quite frankly, Jeff Gordon now out of NASCAR, and Junior, I think, came in 36th yesterday.
Yeah, he had to go out early.
Yeah, so, given a couple of reasons why people may not have tuned in, some people speculate that perhaps the race should be held later in the day. And I don't know why that is, unless you're really a sports purist. But if you're a NASCAR purist, I'm going to believe you're going to be watching that thing if they ran it at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because that's just what you do, on a Sunday.
Here's the thing about waiting late at night.
Yeah.
That's in Florida.
Right.
And we're starting to get to the time of year where there can be thunderstorms every afternoon kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You get the heating and then you get the thunderstorms.
Right.
And, why take that extra risk? I think it works just fine where it is right now.
Yeah.
And there may just be a shift in attention right now as to – and you do mention, Gordon definitely, heck, he's still doing Pepsi commercials.
Oh, yeah.
And so, with him being out of the Sprint Cup Series now.
Yeah, and he's retired.
There are going to be some people that may not necessarily, it's amazing, fans of NASCAR are when they pick a particular driver that they get behind, they are just absolutely rabid in their support for that particular driver. Yeah. And when they go away, it's tough for them to say, Oh, I guess I'll adopt Denny Hamlin.
Well, as was the case of Dale Earnhardt after he was killed. And I guess it's been 20 years now. But, when he was killed, a lot of his fans who were, like, loyal to him really did not want to choose another driver at that time. And, luckily, Junior came along, and most of those fans from his dad's era, did embrace Junior. But you're right. When they get loyal with one particular driver, I notice I don't care who you are. They're wearing his number. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're talking about his races.
Yeah. And the one thing that gets lost in all of that for the fans, and I hate to put a damper on the fans.
No.
But the thing that gets lost is this has become so expensive to operate now that you can't be out there on your own. You have to have a team.
A team, right.
And so most of these guys are on teams, and even though you may not like the other four guys on that five-driver team, they are part of the team and can help your driver win. People will still have their, drivers that they're attracted to, and boy, it is tough to get them to change once a driver retires, or even when the race, during the course of the running of the race, if their driver's out at a certain point, they may just not watch the rest of the race.
Well, some of these races go 400 or 500 laps, obviously, which takes up quite a bit of time to watch. And if you are a loyalist indeed, once your driver goes out, such as the case as Junior yesterday, I think the interest begins to wane. So there again probably is a reasoning why the ratings weren't as high. They probably got to a peak and then they died off. That's probably how they. But you know what? I thought about this, Dave, as we're talking, because we don't talk a lot about racing at all because, and I'm in an area, and you are kind of too, in a hotbed of dirt track racing at one time. They're loyal NASCAR fans in Huntingdon County and, of course, Mifflin County and probably Blair County. And it's funny because we don't have as many tracks around as we used to. You probably remember the old days of Tipton Speedway, for instance. Some of the drag races.
Drags, big-time drags.
Yeah, we had...
on the site where the Pleasant Valley Shopping Center is now.
Yeah.
That used to be a gigantic wooden oval track.
Ah, that's right. I do remember seeing some pictures about that at one time, and they would go around as opposed to asphalt. It was, as you said, a wooden plank. And they actually had some nice little banks on those curves too, man, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had the opportunity to talk to a dear friend of mine who has passed in the last couple of years, who operated a racetrack which was in this area for many years, Heston Speedway, Dave Erickson and his family. His dad actually opened up that speedway in the 60s. He then took it over probably in the early 80s, but unfortunately passed away, and it lay dormant for a couple of years, and now there's a resurrection of this speedway at Heston now. I'm not sure who's operating it, but it seems to me the last couple of years they brought in some pretty good crowds. So, on those Friday, Saturday nights in some of these little boom towns or these little small towns, racing's still number one, especially in the summertime, man.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, absolutely.
Anyhow, I just wanted to touch on that because that's something else that was going on this weekend around the nation in the way of sports. This is Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. We do it every Monday night from 7 to 8 p.m. Dave Shannon joining us from Altoona. Usually we have Chad States with us from Huntingdon, but tonight he's got some other things to do. And Jeff Speck is on the road to Hollidaysburg, where the Huntingdon boys basketball team is facing Forest Hills Rangers in round 1 of District 6 action. Speaking of which, we were talking about Florida there for a second. Baseball pitchers and catchers reported, Friday, I think, down in Bradenton. Dave?
Right, and that's one of the things when you were talking about the outdoors and everything, and I started to see the green grass.
Oh, man,
popping up after the snow finally melted away.
Around our area. Now, they had no snow down in Florida, though.
No, but here, once I see that grass start to have some green sprouts on it, then I start to think about baseball's not too far away.
Yeah, it's not too far away. And let's talk a little bit about the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I know we touch on it from week to week, but every week we have a new audience member that might jump in and find us for the first time. And having said that, if you've not found us and you're listening tonight, well, welcome aboard. If you'd like to call us and you'd like to talk sports, you can do that. Call our studio line, 814-242-4845. That's 814-242-4845. Or if you have the Skype app on your phone, for instance, or even if you're at home online, jump on Greg Banks 3. That's the contact in Skype. Greg Banks 3, and we'll bring you through the studio. But, Dave, let's talk about Bradenton now, because the last couple of weeks we've kind of touched on what they actually have in terms of pitching. There was one thing I did want to bring up to you, and I'll probably bring this up now, but it's like 3 years out. Okay, 3 years out before, let's say, Andrew McCutchen is, of course, available for free agency. And I know that's looking way down the road, in terms of baseball, 3 years. But will he be at that age where the Pirates will probably say, we really don't have the money to keep you? Will he be at that age where, and we'll talk about age in sports, but will he be at that age by that time where they're probably going to just kind of let him go, sort of like, or give him the hometown discount, or he's going to have to give them the hometown discount, to be quite honest?
Yeah, that's the way it probably would go, and that's one of the reasons why baseball clubs will not negotiate too far out,
right?
Because you don't know physically. Age is it's one of those. It's like gravity.
Oh yeah.
As you get older, you kind of despise it.
Yeah,
and it takes things out of you. You're not as fast as you used to be.
No.
You're not as quick. Maybe you're, just a little bit off with your wrist speed and things of that nature.
Lose a step, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of tough for a club to sit down right now, being that there's 3 years left. Now, I think it'll get more serious the closer it gets.
Yeah.
And I think this was McCutchen's first overture to the Pittsburgh Pirates to say, I want to do this. Mm-hmm. He dearly loves Pittsburgh, the comments that I saw him make. And he would dearly love to end his career there.
Yeah.
But that's a TBD, as they say.
Yeah.
That's to be determined, and they'll have to sit down. The Pirates will reach a point where they, whether they see too much in diminishing returns or whether they see a fan draw that continues to keep attendance at PNC Park at the level it has been. Because I remember not that long ago, on a weekday game, there may be, it looked like a high school game. There were about 5,000 people there.
Yeah.
In a stadium that holds like 38 when it gets filled up.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, you want to keep that stadium full if you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people do go to you see so many kids. There's a lot of youngsters that are really big Andrew McCutchen fans.
Yeah.
And so you have to sit down at a certain point and say, are we getting anything back out of Andrew? And does it come down to what he brings to the team as far as money goes? Because he's bringing in money just because of who he is.
So we're too far out at this point right now, even though it's 3 years from now, where if he even wants to extend his contract with them and is agreeable to sitting down with Nutting or whomever at this point, that's just not going to happen. I mean, for all intents and purposes, is it?
Even though okay. I don't see it now. Maybe at the end of this season.
Yeah.
And in the wintertime next year, 16-17,
right?
Then you may see, there may be an initial discussion between them to see exactly where they go from here.
Well,
like I say, you have to go along, you have to play the game, you got to see what that player's bringing to the plate,
right?
And that means a number of different things. Like I say, it can be his performance on the field, but it can also be what he brings to the team as far as the income to the team too. So you got to keep that in mind.
And we've seen teams get burned already. Where they've signed these long-term deals and they get screwed and blued and tattooed. Was a case of and I can't even remember the guy's name now. St. Louis heavy hitter. He's going to go for all the money, and I believe he went with another team, and he hasn't produced ever since. And I've not heard much about him, but that happens in many instances. So speaking of the Pirates, let's just kind of look at their roster this year. In the outfield, you do have McCutchen. You've got Starling Marte. And I mean, so you got a solid outfield. You got Gregory Polanco. Josh Harrison, obviously, he'll be on the infield this year. There's some other names that could be iffy. You got guys like Jake Gobert. You got Jordy Mercer. I'm looking here at Josh Bell, the possibilities. And don't forget, what's his name, Jung-Ho Kong. I still have to pronounce this guy's name. I don't think I've ever pronounced the guy's name right. Is his last name Kong, or what is it?
Gung.
Gung. The K is silent.
Well, the A is a U.
Okay.
As it turns out.
Yeah, so Kung. And so we know we're solid in the infield to a certain extent. We still say first base is probably going to be where we need some players as far as the Pirates are concerned. Jeff Locke on the mound. We know he'll be there. Garrett Cole. I know, but, it is what they have going into the season. Mark Melanson is back in relief. He'll be the short reliever. Liriano's there again. I think maybe I'm tentative, Dave, and you can maybe add to this. That pitching staff is what scares me right now. I mean, of all the positions, I think we're solid catching. There might be a weak spot in the infield, just one, but that pitching rotation scares me.
By the way, the current wisdom is that Jung Ho Kang will not be a starter. He's going to debut on the injured reserve list.
Okay.
So he will not be the starter. The projected starting lineup has Harrison at third, and we had talked about Alan Hansen a couple of times here on Monday Night Sports Talk, and it looks as though Alan Hansen is going to be your starting second baseman.
All right.
They do have Cervelli for another year, which is a great thing. That was a big question mark for me last year because of what Russell Martin brought to that team.
Yeah.
And Francisco Cervelli, I got to give the guy some credit. I
Never
did
lost
not
a beat.
Realize he was that good, but he was.
And isn't it funny how they pick up these Yankees and they don't do much with the Yankees, but when they come to the Pirates, they have some a modicum of success because
absolutely.
We've had two Yankees in the last 4 years, and they produced for us. Now let me ask you, like somebody that I'm kind of wavering on, Tony Watson as a pitcher. I mean, you see strength in he or maybe even Ryan Vogelsong, and John Neese I don't really know much about. When it comes to pitching.
Well, the projection right now is for Neese to be number 3.
Okay.
Cole to be he will be the starter.
He's number 1. Okay.
Yeah, he's number 1. Liriano 2, Neese 3.
Right.
They're projecting Vogelsong as 3rd and Vogelsong as 4th.
What about Glass now? And I think you even mentioned last week about Tyon. I mean, he's in that mix somewhere too, right?
Yeah, I think some of that's going to depend here as to what happens and how those guys look. When spring comes around, and if they don't make it to Pittsburgh coming out of spring training, you will see both of those guys at some point during the season.
Right.
So, I totally agree with you because right now there's 2 potential 3 really holes because Cole and Neese are the only 2 guys that I see that are ready to go. And I know there's been some concerns, Garrett Cole, with his ribs.
Yeah.
But so far in the throwing that he's done, he's been okay. So the 3 holes are Liriano, Vogelsong, and Locke.
Okay.
Those are the 3 holes.
Right.
And now I don't want to sell Francisco short because I thought he was done 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And last year he came out and just impressed the living heck out of me.
Right.
He's one of these guys, and anybody that's a pitcher that goes to Pittsburgh and doesn't take advantage of what Ray Searage can teach them is a fool, is an absolute fool. The guy he has done amazing things. And Liriano in particular, one of those guys that I saw last year strike out more guys with pitches in the dirt, a foot in front of the plate. And these guys are swinging away, baby.
Yeah.
And that's Searage. That's Searage working with him and getting him confident. And,
it's funny that you mentioned that because I've been watching that throughout Major League Baseball the last couple of years. And it strikes me as kind of funny because I've not seen it very often, but a lot of pitching staffs are throwing balls at – we used to say he's bouncing it in front of the plate, and there are guys actually swinging at those balls. That's a strategy, obviously, that seems to be working for many clubs and many pitchers who are throwing balls in the dirt in front of the plate, and people are actually swinging at them.
Well, what it is if you can repeat your motion as a pitcher and not really change, doesn't matter, fastball, off speed, curve, slider, whatever it is that you're throwing.
Yeah.
If your motion doesn't change, it doesn't matter where the ball hits as far as the pitcher's standpoint goes.
Right.
Because what you have is a batter that's constantly on guard and is ready to swing every time he's up at the plate.
Yeah.
And what he sees is, this looks to me like it's going to be a fastball. Mm-hmm. Well, the next thing you know, the thing's coming in and it nosedives right down into the dirt. And you've already committed, you know, because when a ball is moving 90-some miles an hour,
right,
your commitment comes pretty early on after the ball leaves the pitcher's hand.
Oh, no doubt.
You're committed to swing.
Yeah.
And it is tough to hold back, and that's why this has become successful, because there are so many pitchers now that mid-90s is pretty much common fare. Almost in Major League Baseball. So you have to be ready for that. Your mind gets set. There you are, swinging at one in the dirt.
Hey, speaking of which, trying to keep it in the realm of Major League Baseball and not specifically the Pirates, but Dave, pretty soon spring training will be the place where they test out this new headgear for the pitchers. The protective headgear.
I saw a photo today with
I saw Hughes, I believe
Melanson with it on.
Yeah. And, of course, one of their primary concerns is of sports in this day and age, you know, making the game safer for these athletes. Last year, I'm trying to remember the guy from, was it Aurelius Chapman that got beamed in the head with a ball that came back at him and it looked like it almost killed him from the Reds?
The one I will never forget in the history of Major League Baseball is the night Billy Wagner, the closer for the then Houston Astros.
Okay.
Billy Wagner, I mean, that guy lined that ball back through the box, and he just went down like a ton of bricks. I mean, he was out.
Like he got shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like almost like the Kennedy assassination, although we couldn't slow it down to see where it came from. But no, and that's not even funny. But, I mean, again, here we are in 2016. Does that really need to even be? Because obviously, I know Major League Baseball players have this ego, but, you know, the base coaches now have to wear the helmets because didn't somebody get killed one time in Major League or minor league baseball, maybe coaching third base?
And, I think it was actually a first base coach.
Was it? Okay, I remember somebody got nailed, and I think as a result they ended up dying over that. So now you see all the coaches wearing helmets. Now, this helmet basically protects the top of their head from what I'm seeing, and it looks almost like a batting helmet in that at least the front of your head is covered, and then it's open air. Of course, your hat, you know, you put this over your hat. Do you see that as a problem? I mean, seriously, do you see that as something that the Major League players, the union, will adopt? Because you know it's going to start in the Little League now. Well, Little League probably is already using it. I've seen girls in softball wearing face masks now, like hockey masks, as they pitch underhanded. But having said that, do you think this will be adopted by Major League and then trickle down?
It depends on how much it interferes with the pitcher's performance. That's why you're seeing them in spring training and not during the regular season.
Okay, yeah.
They've been out for a couple of years now, and there's been design changes throughout the course of that time. And there was one Major League pitcher who did use that for about a month, bullpen pitcher, and eventually he stopped using it because that's ultimately where you are with that. Yeah. How much does it interfere with your ability to pitch at a certain point?
Do you think it really impedes your ability to throw the ball? Because
what
you might have a couple ounces on your head?
It can make you sweat like a pig.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And that's not something you want to have happen. Then it gets loose on your head. And it starts to move around because of the amount of force that you're putting into each pitch.
Okay.
And so therefore, that's where you got to narrow these things down and get them so not only are you providing the protection, but you're providing the pitcher with something that he doesn't even think about while he's out there.
Well, you know, last year's big bugaboo was, remember the timing between pitches was being used in spring training, and then it would be adopted by the minor leagues. Did we adopt a timing?
Okay, I forget what the amount of seconds are.
Okay,
but,
so
there is that clock there, and there's also the stepping out of the batter's box.
Exactly. Okay, so
so you can't do that now. If you do ask for time, and you give the umpire a reasonable reason, you can step back out of the batter's box.
Oh, yeah, if you get something in your eye or something.
Right.
But you're not going to be sitting there.
That's the only time you can do that now because it was somewhat of a tradition.
Oh, there were guys putting on their arm shields, sliding them up and kicking dirt and washing their face and eating a hamburger, and it's like, come on already.
Yeah, and so they're starting to flush that out of the system. Another thing I did see, and thank God somebody recognizes this, is almost as smacky in the face obvious of why is it hot out? It's hot out because the sun is a little warmer than it used to be. That's sometimes smacky in the face obvious, and people don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
One of the things that they're going to pay attention to is the commercial breaks now.
Oh, yeah.
Between innings are going to be cut down. I think they're taking 30 seconds off of the commercial breaks between innings.
And Major League Baseball would probably tell you, right there goes that $1 billion we could have had.
Raise your rates, and if you're able to sell it that much, raise your rates, and you'll still make the same amount of money with fewer commercials.
Well, speaking
of one thing I have noticed, and this is a testimony as to how long that gets, you watch at the end of an inning. At the end of an inning in the past,
right?
The last out would be recorded. The batter, let's say he was thrown out at first base and he's taken all his paraphernalia off, and you see the rest of the team coming out, and a guy would bring his hat and glove out to him.
Oh, yeah,
well,
exactly.
If you watch, and maybe this is something you want to pay attention to, I don't know how much this will change this year, but at the end of an inning, the guys just sit in the dugout. They don't even start to move. It's like till they actually run the commercial, those guys are just snug as a bug in a rug, sitting there in the bullpen or in the dugout, not even making a move because they know how long it takes for all those commercials to play when they can start again.
Yeah, sort of like the football timeouts where, they have the guy on the sideline with the red glove, and we take a TV timeout, and then the guys are standing on the sideline or being coached up. Because they know that it's going to be 2 to 3 minutes before they can go out and start to play. But I just wanted to kind of touch base on a couple of things with Major League Baseball because we're really not that far away from the Pirates opening up their season. And I hope that they have a successful season. I know these are not the days of the World Series championships back in, let's say 79, and especially 60 or 52 or 25, whenever it was.
71.
Yeah, 71. But
29.
One thing they are going to do, though, is they're doing the throwback uniforms on Sunday home games I saw from the days of the Pirates when we were family. Remember the old yellow top and the...
good Lord.
Yeah, they're using those.
Lord. They're bringing those. I like the 71 ones that they had been wearing. That is such a clean uniform. It's just a nice white, the Pirates logo, the way it looks on the players. I think those 71 uniforms are just fantastic. I enjoyed watching those Sunday games and seeing them with the mustard yellow cap on.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Well, they're bringing back a little bit of nostalgia, and I understand, and this was kind of cool because when I saw McCutcheon, modeling the uniform the other day, it took me back to, when I used to watch Pop Stargell, and he was wearing that uniform. You know what I mean?
The one thing that always comes to my mind, Greg, and that's true. I mean, Willie does, but the one player to me that's forever linked to those uniforms is Dave Parker.
Dave Parker,
I always think of the Cobra.
Yeah, the Cobra.
When I see those 79 uniforms.
Right. Hey, well, listen, let's talk a little bit about baseball. It's Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Dave Shannon live in Altoona tonight via Skype. Greg Banks in the studio. You can join us. Give us a call, 814-242-4845. That's 814-242-4845. We're here every Monday night, by the way. And we will have some more live content coming up soon on theairnetwork.net. So check out our webpage at www.theairnetwork.net, and we'll keep you posted on that.
Hey, Greg.
Chicago, yes, sir.
The hip kids don't do that triple-W thing.
I know.
Just
and why
say
do I
what
say
it is. Theairnetwork.net.
Theairnetwork.net. I feel so old whenever I don't include that W, or when I do include that WW thing.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes add too many W's, but and then they say, well, I can't find the damn thing because there were 4 W's in his. No, there weren't. I just added one for the hell of it. But Chicago Cubs, I heard this today. And, I don't know if this was just something Joe Madden was saying to the press or not, but he's like, damn it, spring training opens this week. My guys have been down here since last month. They got to take it easy. He says, they're getting too anxious. Now, have you ever heard a manager ever say that my team is too damn anxious and went down to Florida early, a month early, and practiced among themselves, unless that team thought they were going to kick some ass somewhere down the road? And should Joe be upset about that?
Yeah, I think he should.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. He is
burnout.
He is the top-notch coach.
Right.
That I could. What a great move for the Cubs to get him. And with that in mind, one of the things that Joe Maddon wants to emphasize is he's always having fun. He's the guy that brings flamingos into the locker room, for God's sake. And it when you come right down to it, it's grown men playing a kid's game. The way people always refer to it, and that is true. And with that in mind, if you can't act like a kid, then you're not going to have a whole lot of fun. And I'll tell you what, when things are going bad in your season, and everybody's season has ups and downs, there are very few teams that come out of the gate hot and finish hot and stay hot in between. That just doesn't happen a whole lot. Although there are expectations that the Cubs are going to do that and end up with over 100 wins this season. But there's still going to be some down times during that where you might lose 2 or 3 in a row or 4.
Yeah.
And if you're too serious about what you're doing, that can be a hell of a hill to climb when you have those tough times to try to get back out of. So I agree with Joe.
What do you
Don't get so serious. It's not business.
Yeah.
You're playing a game.
Well,
it's a game.
Do you think, though, that those players, I mean, they could still work out every day out in Arizona is where their camp is.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they just got together early themselves, because maybe they were trying to break up the winter monotony and say, hey, let's go out and pitch and catch and let's do some running on our own before camp opens up. They're Major League Baseball players. You don't think they were still having fun in the evenings? I mean, we know the Pirates are down there in Bradenton.
Yeah, that aspect of it. But the thing is, it's such a tiring season. I think that's one of the things about baseball.
It's long enough.
That makes it a very physically demanding. And people, because they're not getting hit, like football or hockey or even basketball, guys, being knocked down onto the floor.
Right.
And so you don't have that contact per se that you have in the other sports. But I'll tell you what, you go out there and play a position in the field and you stand, or if you're a catcher, the catchers I really feel for.
I feel bad for those guys, the putting on the tools of ignorance on the hottest day of the year.
Yeah, and the amount of time you're in a crouching, I mean, geez whiz, those guys are amazing.
Yeah, they are.
But I think the thing about that is the season's long enough when you consider the actual organized spring training and then your Cactus League for them, Grapefruit League for the Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
You've got those games going on, and now you come back up north and you start to play in April, and you aren't done till the end of September.
Well,
that is a grind. It's definitely a marathon and not a sprint.
And if you go on beyond that, in the case of Joe Maddon and his hopes for the Cubs, they're playing in October, man. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
well
it's like,
into
holy
October.
hell, yeah.
And so I think he has a right to be concerned because it's like, I don't care what you do about your own physical fitness and things of that nature, but don't be so concerned about the baseball side of it.
Right.
Don't be out there spending ungodly amounts of hours in the batting cage and whatever else that you may be doing, doing throwing from the outfield to the plate.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you thought was a good thing to be doing, just wait. Spring training comes. You'll get plenty of that during spring training. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
If you want to show up early and just train, as far as the physical training, fine. Don't worry about the baseball side of it. You're going to be sick of it to a degree.
It is your job
by the time
after
September
all.
rolls around.
Yeah, it is your job after all. Hey, not putting much credence in Vegas when it comes to baseball and these early odds that they give. But, I got to admit, I did hear a report today that, odds are that the Cubs are the team to beat this year, Dave. I mean, just
it's
flat
really
out.
low, too. They're 4-1 favorites.
Exactly.
And the next closest two teams are 10-1 favorites.
I know, and so I'm sitting there thinking to myself, if the bookmakers are making these guys 4-1, odds on the Cubs winning the World Series, and hell, we haven't even hit a ball yet because I think they opened up camp today. And the Pirates opened up camp for the position players today. I think it's too early to start making these kind of predictions because here again, we still hear about trade rumors. You know what I mean? I mean, you hear about people that might not get along well in the locker rooms. I mean, so I'm kind of sitting here thinking, okay, I'm going to keep that in mind. Dave and I will talk about these Cubs, but we'll see in like 8 to 9 months where are these guys going to be. So make a bookmark this, Dave.
Yeah.
Remember, on this date, what is it, the 22nd of February, the odds bookmakers are saying the Cubs are going to win it. I just hope
easily.
Yeah, well, that's what they're saying.
The odds.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. All right, let's turn our attention here on Monday Night Sports Talk to something important that happened since we last met, Dave. And if you want to call us, 814-242-4845. That's 814-242-4845. Monday Night Sports Talk on the Air Network. Heath Miller finally retired. He no longer, we're no longer going to hear that Heath at every game, even if they make a mistake and it's Jesse James out there running the ball and they get confused. Well, what kind of depth now do we have at tight end? Does it matter because they have the other wide receivers like Brown and some of the other guys? And I mentioned Jesse James and Spaeth, who came in and did a half-decent job in the absence of Heath Miller. Is it going to be a real problem? And the other thing is they just freed up $4 million whenever he retired last week. So what's that mean?
Yeah, it is a problem.
Okay.
It is a problem because of what he brings above and beyond his ability to catch passes.
Yeah, the blocking.
And get open.
Okay.
For as big a man as he is, it's always been amazing to me to watch him play.
Yeah.
And that's the part where, yes, it is a big loss simply because when they need extra protection for Ben Roethlisberger, he's the guy that's going to bring it for them. And Jesse James, that boy better be out eating a lot of steaks right now because he needs to put some meat on his bones if they're going to be able to rely on him as a blocker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Matt Spaeth, on the other hand, and I've always looked at the two beside each other, Spaeth and Miller.
Oh, they look similar in body shape, didn't
they're
they?
almost like twins.
Yeah.
The one thing is Spaeth has never been both quite the blocker or receiver. Now, granted, he's not had as many reps as Heath Miller has. And so he has the potential to fill in, but you got to have that other guy there, too.
Well, here's the thing.
Tight end can get beat up in a game, so you got to have somebody else to go to.
And that's the other thing Heath was very good at doing, this blocking. You know what I'm saying? He understood.
Big time.
And that was probably one of Ben's biggest friends when it came to the offensive line. He knew that Heath was there. Now, having said that, we've got like $4 million that they can spend and free up. We have the draft coming up. What's the likelihood? Because you got to remember, you're replacing a guy that averaged 8.9 yards per reception. I remember how I used to say, Heath could fall like 5 yards. He was like Gronk, man. He's going to move some guys with him, and he's going to get you 5 yards. What do you think they can do with that $4 million? I mean, you think that's going to be a possibility?
Get a good player for the secondary.
Okay.
That's
more crucial, you think?
I don't mean to diminish the tight end position. Everything you're saying is right.
Right.
Technically, as far as heights go, I think Jesse James could fall forward for more yardage than what Heath Miller did.
And you mentioned Spaeth, too. I mean, the size he has. I mean, if you use these guys strategically, and they do block because Spaeth has that body formation again. Hey, you rely on Antonio Brown and Wheaton and some of those guys to be your main receivers, and you dunk it off to your running back, So they got to do something with the secondary on defense, so that's what I'm thinking. Use that $4 million for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, does that mean you ignore the fact that you just lost probably the best tight end your team ever had? No.
Oh, yeah.
Further along in the draft, you have to be looking for someone to replace Heath Miller, but that would not be a top priority.
It's not a priority.
I still say that secondary is a big priority for the Steelers.
Well, you got to remember, here we go now. Heath was, 32, 33 years old. And the sad part is this. Hey, guess what? There's only 2 more players on that team that are probably in that age group that have to leave yet so they can do this major reconstruction. And one of them's Ben, and I believe there's a lineman. Now, I'm not talking about Harrison, because Harrison might decide to leave. He hasn't decided to come back yet. But age-wise, Ben's going to be, 34, 35 years old? You got another lineman there. I believe he turns 35 this year. 33, 34 years is an old age to be playing in the NFL now, man.
Yeah, grizzled, as they say.
And there's got to be some concern of Heath thinking about CTC at his age. Just like Polamalu obviously did, saying, maybe I ought to get out now. I've made enough money. I really would like to enjoy my kids into my 50s and 60s if I can make it now,
Yeah, sure.
So I think there's some concern there, but I think the next thing they have to look at is, I agree, is secondary. Look at that oh, my God, we get burned every time you turn around and you look at the defense because we obviously had to replace some very good defensive backs. And NFL draft is coming up, so we'll see how that all works out. As, of course, the Steelers will be going, how deep will they go this year? I mean, will they be like the 16th pick or no, we should be at least somewhere in the top 10, shouldn't we? Maybe not.
No, not top 10.
No way?
We're going to be down there a bit because of the eventual ending record. So it's not going to be the worst pick in the draft, and you never know. They may look at something and think about trading up in the draft if they see a particular player that they're interested in.
Exactly.
And they're worried that player may go by the time they get to their pick.
Yeah.
So, there's planning. It's already been done. I think they know who they want at this point as their first pick in the first round. And so, that stuff has already been decided. The only thing that changes that is if that player gets picked before their pick comes up.
Right. Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. We're here Monday night from 7 to 8. We rebroadcast again this evening at 10 o'clock. You'll hear this broadcast. And go to our website at theairnetwork.net and check it out all week long. Dave Shannon live in Altoona via Skype. Dave, wrapping up the NFL this year, there's some thought, and I think Sean King wrote an article today, or one of the columnists saying that maybe Roger Goodell should forgive the Deflategate for the Patriots and let them go ahead and not give away their number one draft selection. What's your feelings on that? I don't think you give back anything to those pricks myself. I mean, that's me personally, but there seems to be some people that are sympathetic to thinking that maybe, just maybe, we ought to just give them a break.
No, I don't think you do. I think the Patriots have shown over the course of time that they're willing to stretch and try to get right up to the boundary, if not cross it, way too many times.
Yeah.
And if this is the punishment you decided on, then that punishment should remain. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think if Goodell ends up letting that part of it slide, then he's even worse off as far as respect value goes.
Oh, yeah.
No, absolutely, you keep that on. I mean, you made that decision. Yeah. If in history they look back and say, well, he should have taken that off, too bad.
Yeah. You know who the Patriots remind me of as I think about it? And I'm not slamming lawyers, okay, or politicians. Because they do what they do, and they know, every politician is a damn lawyer anyhow, for the most part, but they know the gray areas. You know what I mean? They know, okay, well, we're going to push the envelope here, but according to the law, it's like you're not avoiding paying taxes, you're just evading the taxes. You know what I'm saying? There is a difference, when it comes to the law. So, I mean, that's what the Patriots, and to hear this today, I wanted to kick my television set, but I told you I played basketball earlier today, and I'm already screwed up enough as it is. So when I hear somebody saying, well,
take the walker to bed with you tonight.
Oh, my God, God love her, 84-year-old Betty. She's just had so much fun today on her walker and that basketball. She's probably not going to have aches and pains like I am. But anyhow, hey, listen, what are the Penguins doing these days? I'm seeing reports that, they've had a pretty good weekend, and they're on the road again, right? Is this a road trip they're doing again? I mean, hell, it seems like they're playing every night since Friday, Dave.
Yeah, well, this is kind of a slow week for them because they just played the Sabres on Sunday. And, of course, Saturday they played Tampa Bay. and both of those were afternoon games. They will not play again until Wednesday.
Okay.
And then the next game after that is not until Saturday.
Oh, so they get some time now. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of downtime for them, which I think is a good thing because I think it may give Evgeny Malkin enough time to get back into the lineup. And that's a crucial part.
Because we're now really are getting close to the playoffs and making a decision whether or not they get in or not. I mean, there's going to be a stretch here real soon.
Yeah, well, they're right now. Right now they're in such a good position. I mean, they could move up. And just getting a win and a New York Islanders loss, they're suddenly tied for third place in their division.
Yeah, okay.
Which would get them into a completely different playoff position. Here's the one thing I am concerned about with the Penguins, and that is last week they played the New York Rangers on Wednesday, and they looked like crap.
Right.
Okay. And then they took on Tampa Bay on Saturday at Pittsburgh, and they looked like crap. Now, they did take on the Buffalo Sabres, and they squeaked by 4-3 as the Sabres tried to put a late charge on and succeeded in getting within one goal, but then eventually just ran out of time at the very end. Here's what I'm seeing with the Penguins right now. The ability to beat the teams that are below them and an inability to beat the teams that are above them. So this is a problem, and what that means is you get into the playoffs, and the most you're going to go is 2 rounds in the playoffs. You may not make it out of the first round, and if you do make it out of there, you're not going to make it out of the second round. They just don't seem to be able to put games together against the teams that are above them in the standings. And if they're going to have any kind of a run in the postseason, they have to do that. And to be honest with you, it's going to be tough. The Washington Capitals are just an amazing team this year. Mm-hmm. I see them as possibly getting a cup in D.C. this year, which would really, by the way, put a lot of pressure on the Washington Nationals to do something, because at least you'd have 2 championships in D.C. But that being said, the Caps, man, I just don't know who gets by them. The only thing that takes the Caps out of that kind of contention is if they suffer a big injury at some point. You know, if Ovechkin would go down for some reason, boy, that would make a big difference in that team, and maybe they wouldn't make it to the Stanley Cup. But interestingly enough, Greg, looking ahead to the postseason, you had mentioned these guys. You've had them on your radar for a while now. The Anaheim Ducks are now being, basically looked at as even though the Chicago Blackhawks have their wonderful record, although the Blackhawks looked like crap yesterday against Minnesota in that outdoor game.
Right.
But that being said, Chicago still has that record, but the Anaheim Ducks are being listed as, if you look at power rankings that they come out with week to week, right now the Ducks are second only to the Washington Capitals.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
And so, the Ducks are making a charge here toward the end of the season, and it's always, there are 2 things, and this postseason thing I'm in favor of no matter what the sport. If you're on a roll at the end of the season, chances are you'll be on a roll when you get to the postseason. Mm-hmm. Although the Kansas City Chiefs proved me wrong on that.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm glad you brought that up. I'm not a staunch hockey fan by any means, but okay, they take the top 8, I believe it is, from, is that each
East
division?
And the West.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that's, don't you think that's a little bit much, 8 teams? What happens if there were only 6 teams? I mean, does that shorten the season? I mean, do you really think that it takes 8 teams, or is it a monetary thing?
Where was our conversation earlier when we were talking about commercials in baseball?
Yeah, it's all about the money, huh?
There you go. There you go.
It's about
because
the money.
What you do, Greg, is you take you're going to have 2 teams that get in as quote-unquote wild cards.
Right.
Because you're taking the top 3 out of each division. In the East, it's the Atlantic and the Metropolitan.
Right.
So you take those top 6 teams, and then you add in 2 out of the entire conference to make your wild card selections.
Okay.
And so what it does is it continues to keep interest up. Maybe some fans go to some late season games that ordinarily may not because their team has a chance to make it in as a wild card bid. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it's all about. That's not going to change. Anything that brings in more money to the league and to the teams is going to be maintained. So, it's like the state of
it's
been this way for a long time now.
It's like the state of Pennsylvania. When they enacted tax, it's not like they're ever going to go back on it. You know what I mean? Once you pay that tax, and I always bring up the tax they imposed in the state, like back in the 30s, it was called the Johnstown flood tax. Well, that was a 1939 flood. Okay, so the flood's over now. Well, they're not giving back the money. I mean, that's just how it works. Hey, interesting enough, how did Letang do over the weekend? Because I'm hearing that he just had all kinds of assists yesterday in that win over the Sabres. Is that something that he's noted for? Is he becoming more of a player? I mean, and how is he getting so open that he's able to pass the puck in a scoring situation?
Well, I think one of the things that's gone on since Mike Sullivan has been there is to encourage more shooting at the net.
Right.
And when a lot of those shots emanate from the defenseman. Mm-hmm. I watched yesterday's game. Ole Mata had a lot of shots in yesterday's game. Chris Letang always has a lot of shots. The other thing that Letang does, and Mata does this as well, when there are situations that develop in the offensive end, you will find that Letang will move down toward the play. He'll abandon his spot as a defenseman back at the blue line, and every once in a while that comes back to bite you in the butt.
Oh, yeah.
But he is one of those guys that he sees an opening and he just tears for it. And that's going to lead you either to a goal or an assist most of the time. If you pick your openings correctly, that's what it'll bring you. You'll either get a goal or an assist. So you've got two things going on. You have a team that's more inclined to shoot than pass. And you also have the fact that you have a player who's willing to give up his defensive position to get down further in the offensive zone. Letang is really having a great season, no doubt about it. He's been healthy, though. He's missed some games. He has been out a couple of times. But he's come back, and he's fine, and right now he's really doing well.
So what's the schedule looking like this week then for the Penguins Day? I think you said Wednesday night and then Sunday, or what's that
Saturday.
look like? Saturday.
Wednesday, Saturday afternoon at 3.
Okay.
They have a game at the arena at Consol Energy, and then they have a Monday game after that. The Wednesday game is the NBC Sports Network Wednesday night rivalry.
Okay, cool.
And they'll take on the Boston Bruins.
Right.
That's a game there. And getting to the point where you want to talk about a must-win. I don't know that it's a must-win, but, boy, it would go a long way to solidifying them here to beat a team that's above them and a team that's traditionally given them trouble over the years.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. It's at Boston, so we'll see how that one comes out.
Well, traditionally, I don't watch much hockey other than the Penguins, but I did happen to tune in the other day to the outdoor game. I think it was Minnesota and Blackhawks played that game.
Yesterday.
That
Chicago
was cool.
and Minnesota.
That was kind of cool. But, here again, I think the crowd is so, if you're paying a ticket, you're so far removed from the ice rink. It's not as intimate as being at, obviously, any one of the arenas in America. And it does become more of a visual television game, if you will.
Especially when they go into a gigantic facility like that.
Oh, my God, yeah.
You notice, I don't know if you've seen the games in the baseball fields.
Oh, and I saw the track that goes around the inside near the rink, and then there's a fence that goes around that track. And then you're sitting up in the stands another 100 yards away from it.
Yeah. Football fields are bad for that.
Yeah.
But if you see one in a baseball stadium, if you saw the one at Wrigley Field.
I saw one at Yankee Stadium, I believe, one time, or some baseball field. So, yeah,
well, Boston, they did one in Boston
at
Fenway Park.
Right.
And when you see those, that's a little bit more on the intimate side. It's still, if you're in the upper deck, you have no idea. These look like small ants that are zooming around.
I'm going to tell you, my first hockey game that I ever attended, Lemieux was playing. I believe it was his first or second year, and I was at the old Civic Arena, and I think the best tickets we could get were up there in nosebleed area. And, and everybody was drunk by the time we got there. they look like ants, and we couldn't see the puck. And I didn't want to get out of my seat and walk down the steps because it looked like it was this incline that if you tripped on one step, you would end up on the ice.
Yeah. I've been in places like that, one of which would be what they call Progressive Field now.
Really?
The old Jacobs Field out in, they called it Jacobs Field when it first opened in Cleveland.
Yeah.
If you're in the upper deck, I guarantee you're walking up or down. It's like, I better not slip because I'll be the whole way down in the field.
And that's the worst feeling, man. And I tell you, back in my youth, being drunk was probably the worst thing to do, going to a ball game of any kind or even a hockey game. So, anyhow, hey, best of luck to the Penguins as they make a run for it. It's Monday Night Sports Talk. Dave Shannon live in Altoona. Greg Banks live in the studio on the airnetwork.net. About ready to wrap things up. But before we do, Dave, real quick, Penn State wrestlers continue to be undefeated. They win their first national dual wrestling title yesterday. I'm watching this on television on the Big Ten Network. The place was packed, which it always is. Rec Hall, they sell that out. Now they're making space on the floor, but there's only so much space that you can actually, put people when it comes to wrestling matches. But having said that, Bryce Jordan was tied up yesterday. But here again, they just look tremendous. Like nobody's going to stop that team, Dave. They are so deep, even when they don't have their top guys out there.
Yeah,
their subs are like rated high in the nation. It's unreal what he's done with that
I'll tell
program.
you what, Cale Sanderson was a godsend for the university's wrestling program. And I'm glad the fans, I did public address for Penn State wrestling for several seasons.
Yeah.
And I'm really thrilled that the wrestling club gets to enjoy what they're able to enjoy right now because they put up with some lean seasons and, some good seasons too.
Yeah.
And they always have an expectation there. And now whatever expectation they had has been totally exceeded by Cale Sanderson and what he's brought to the university. So,
well, and I think back to what Chad said last year about the red shirting of some of these kids who, they just basically wanted the red shirt so they'd be healthy for this season because even though they probably could have won a national championship if they would have wrestled last year, the reality was they did it for a reason. The red shirt is Megaludis. He's just tremendous wrestler. He kicked that thing off yesterday, and he pinned this guy in a combination that was just unreal. And then I watched the McIntosh bout, too, and it's just, I can't see anybody stopping those kids. And now they'll go
I think they have another national championship.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's
no question about that.
Yeah.
They've done well staying healthy, too.
Oh, no doubt.
Throughout the course of this year.
Well, you know what? And next up for the Penn State Nittany Lion wrestlers is Big Ten wrestling bout, and that's March 4th and 5th, I believe. So that'll be interesting, see how that works out. But I don't think anybody's going to stop them because they already pounded Ohio State earlier this season. Hey, speaking of wrestling, keeping it here for one more minute, Huntington Bearcats, they actually had 3 district champions this year, which is what Chad expected. There was one match that we expected Jake Oliver to come out and be a champion, but he had a shoulder problem in the season. We don't know if he's totally healthy yet, and he got beat in his match. So they ended up with Colin Glorioso going to the district championship at 132. Tyler Scott, who was the most valuable wrestler, at 138. He won his bout. He's a district champion. And Seth Bainey at 145. And what's really cool, Dave, is this the 3rd consecutive year that Huntington has won District 6 AA wrestling as a team, you know what I'm saying, as far as the points. And Coach John Mikett takes 8 wrestlers into the regionals coming up in 2 weeks to Cannon McMillan High School. That's unheard of, So our hats off to the Huntington Bearcats. We call them the Huntington Matt Cats, at least I do. And we wish them the best of luck as they continue towards getting some of these kids as state champion wrestlers at the end of the season coming up in the next few weeks. Meanwhile, Dave, I hate to wrap it up, but, man, we're running out of time. You and I could sit here and talk, for probably for another 2 hours, which we will off the air. They just don't hear the conversation. If we were in real radio, we'd never get our conversation on the air because it'd be bleeped out the whole night. But, Dave, thanks again, man. I appreciate it as we wrap up.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you. As we wrap up another edition of Monday Night Sports Talk, we'll do it again, by the way, coming up next Monday night from 7 to 8 p.m. You can always call us up. We'll give you the number. Hey, more importantly, if you like what you hear, you'll hear it on our website at theairnetwork.net. Just go to the front page tomorrow, and you can listen on demand. And we have a rebroadcast coming up Monday evening at 10 p.m. and throughout the week. So thanks again for listening. We hope that you'll become a part of our show, Monday Night Sports Talk, live each Monday night from 7 to 8 on theairnetwork.net. Good night, everybody.